Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Healing Conversations. My name is Einav Avni. I'm an energy healer and alignment coach. And this podcast, Healing Conversations, is all about natural healing of mind, body, and soul. Today in the studio, I have Kristen Renee. Kristen, it's wonderful to have you. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. So excited to be here.
Awesome. So I'm very much looking forward to our conversation today. There's a lot, things, a lot of stories and to hear about your journeys and everything that you've overcome. But let's get started wherever feels right. So tell us something about you.
Well, thanks again for having me here. Let's see, I am here because I found my purpose through this journey and want to spread the message of what helped me heal after trying everything for 10 years and throwing enormous amounts of money at healing. And I almost feel like I was like a guinea pig to try it for others to then understand what worked. So my story is, maybe 15 years ago now, had an autoimmune diagnosis and was an avid runner, and that's when it happened, and was told this is for life. And I just remember thinking in that doctor's office, it's just not going to be my story. Like right then and there, the way the diagnosis was, everything, I'm like, this just seems like there's something in my body saying, like an alarm or like an inner knowing that was like, it's going to be for life for me. I believe I told my rheumatologist right then, like, I think I'm going to heal this. And I did not know it would be 10 years later. I really thought I was strong-willed and I would find the root cause right away. I went every single stone I could and eventually learned how to heal myself through all sorts of shifts, which we can get into. But really that's what started this whole journey, and it's been wonderful to finally to learn on the other side, like, this wasn't happening to me, this was actually happening for me. But what a journey it was.
So let's pause for a second and kind of just set the scene. And so you were diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, a diagnosis, like you say, you don't own anymore. But that is quite remarkable. A lot of the time, we know through having so many different conversations about that is that the people, when they go to the doctors and they hear whatever diagnosis it is, a lot of the time the first thing that people do is they buy into it. And now it's kind of like most people go through a very similar journey of trying to find the cure, trying to use whatever Western medicine has to offer and so on, before they at some point say, right, that's no longer my route. I'm going to make a shift. I'm going to turn right instead of left, or the other way around. So what was it like for you? How did you have this inclination that actually you can disown this diagnosis and saying, actually, that's not my journey? How did that happen?
It was a long journey because, the first time we were talking about how I don't claim ownership of the diagnosis, and I learned about that, and it's now one of my principles through an intuitive coach. I didn't know any of this stuff. I had heard about naturopaths and stuff, at the time, but I'd never worked with them. But I think I always, in my heart, leaned that way. I just didn't know it yet and needed, this was the catalyst. So working with an intuitive coach one day, I was explaining my situation. This was early on. And she stopped me and said, "Did you hear the words that you were saying? Like, that explains a lot." And she went on to say, in the course of my explaining the situation, I said the words, "my diagnosis," or "my autoimmune," or "my rheumatoid arthritis," and "the body." I wasn't claiming ownership of my own body, and I was claiming ownership of a diagnosis. And just in the words I said, it showed, what was a lot of what was going on with me, which was that I was very detached from my body. Calling it the body. I was very fearful of my body. Turns out as a kid I disassociated and disconnected because of too many big emotions to deal with, and that became a pattern. So yeah, I was claiming ownership of a diagnosis while also not claiming ownership of my own body. So I learned to really switch that, and that helped too. And that's, was the first moment I realized how impactful our words and thoughts are on what's going on. And I learned to be very cautious of, I guess, careful of the words that I select. I think that they can have a really big impact, and it can show where our mind is too with that. So that was like the first time I realized I don't want to claim ownership, and so I learned to say things like, I'm healing, my body is healing, I have this diagnosis, but it's on its way out, or you just learn to say it differently, right? That was really helpful. That was a really big step for me.
And I think it feels like this was a little bit later on, right? Because, like you say, you were diagnosed, and then you had 10 years of trying to figure things out. What was these 10 years like?
Well, I always had a really high stress corporate job. This all occurred years after divorce too, so I was kind of rebuilding financially, so that was probably some extra stress on me. I owned my home, dog, juggling, commuting, and what I was reading most every night to try to understand this, and you keep getting told about gut protocols and elimination diets and food testing, and everything was focused on, I went to naturopaths, I tried nutritionists, everything was focused on food, and I actually became so fearful of the food I was eating too from that. I was afraid of every single bite. And I guess I should just back up. When I got the diagnosis, at the time my knee and ankle had swollen, both on the right side. Over time, it impacted my elbow, it impacted hands, it impacted my eye, mostly all on the right side, just so people understand, like, what does it mean when you get a diagnosis like this? And I had been a runner and an athlete. I am, again. I was when it happened. And being so fearful of the food you eat, plus not able to work out because your joints are impacted, I became alarmingly thin too. I didn't even notice because it was like a gradual, but my friends later would tell me, like, your jeans were so baggy. But that's how fearful you get when you're like, I don't know if this little bite will, just have a joint swell up. So I get teary thinking about that time. So what I finally decided after years, so I tried stem cells, PRP, lymph, every, like, different blood protocol, like everything I could, every contraption. But I kept the same lifestyle patterns, environment, thoughts, and that's when, like, things would keep it at bay. So at first I went on medication. I didn't want to, but I had no quality of life. I couldn't walk crutches. So when it was in the beginning and my family urged me, like, let's just at least try this. You can still try your other protocols. And eventually, with all the protocols I was trying, I worked with the doctor to wean off the medication just to see if this stuff was working. And I would be able to keep it at bay, for 6 months or maybe even a year, just with little things here and there, like over time, but it would come back. And it would year end, which was like my corporate job, year end was the busiest time of the year and the most stressful. So it's devastating when it comes back. You just like, every time maybe is worse than the last when it returns, because you're like, I'm trying everything. So I eventually decided, I had this inner knowing. It's the best way I can describe it, because no one told me to do this. I hadn't read any books about it yet. I just had an inner knowing that I needed to change up everything drastically. I wanted to take a hold of my, at least, financial safety, and against everyone else's thoughts, I decided to sell my home and move, and at least have get off the financial hamster wheel. And really, that's when I call it how I blew up my life. But I had this inner knowing, like, I can't just continue to be doing the same things that aren't moving me forward. And timing was right for a number of things to ask my company if I could work remote, and sold my home. I had no plan of where I was going to move other than I need to change up my life. And it was on the drive, moving states, just to an Airbnb, because I didn't really have a plan. I remember thinking, how am I going to find a new ophthalmologist for my eye issue? Because at the time, I was treating everything separate. There was a specialist for the eye sensitivity. I ended up going to them weekly because it was so bad. Specialist for my elbow. I was going to a chiropractor because we thought maybe it's tennis elbow. Specialist for my knee, etc. It was all separate. And I remember driving thinking, I can't add the stress of finding an ophthalmologist with my eye sensitivity and fears. I can't add this to my plate. I have way too much going on in my life, right? I just sold most of my belongings. I'm in a U-Haul with my dog. Don't really have a lease. And trying to work remote, work full-time the whole time while I was going through all that by myself. And I just remember thinking, that's it. I'm not bringing this eye issue with me to this next state. It's not part of this next chapter. I just can't bring it with me. And I never had it again. And so truly it was like an overnight change. And that was kind of my first moment of like, oh, there really is so much to do with what you're thinking and what's going on in your body. And this like, I didn't realize at the time, but I think the act of just simply choosing myself, choosing to experience a different part of life. I've later read Louise Hay's book, You Can Heal Your Life. And, she talks about what each body part might mean, what the emotional component is, and your eye is, maybe something you didn't want to see. So maybe I was like leaving behind something I just didn't want to see it the old state. I don't know. And, it's forward movement. And that was one of my overnight healings. That really opened my eyes to like, oh, maybe it's not just the foods we eat, but our thoughts and loving ourselves and choosing ourselves. So that really, blowing up my life, catapulted my path. And, I had other overnight healings following that from different changes I had in my life. So yeah, that was the catalyst for the healing, I'd say, is honestly choosing me and my health and what I needed above everyone else's needs, honestly.
I think you're saying some very important things, right? I mean, first of all, you're already alluding to like other people's opinions, for example, and how how involved people even sometimes allow themselves to be on your healing journey, or on one's healing journey, and how challenging it can be to really navigate what you want or what you feel is right versus what they want or feel is right. Of course, a lot of the time they operate from fears because they're worried, so they have, it's a legitimate fear, but it's not something that you actually need on your journey.
Right.
So there's that, and then that's the very stressful corporate job and all of these different changes in your life. And then the other thing that you're saying is that you also notice that whatever it is that you were experiencing physically was coming and going. So there was some sort of a cycle. In other words, it wasn't 10 out of 10, 24/7 kind of thing. There were changes that came from somewhere, and here you are needing to make sense out of when is it high, when is it low, when is it this 10 out of 10, when is it.
Is it, yeah, what is triggering it? Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing that you're saying, like, right, is I choose me, and I choose not to carry this with me. And I think all of these things are very important. This is exactly what we want to talk about, because when we talk about natural healing, even if the word natural is a little bit tired these days, we are saying something that is very radically different to what a lot of people, when they're going through their healing journeys. And I guess the notion even of a healing can be quite foreign to them, because they don't know how to do these things, or they don't know that, or maybe they didn't make the connection yet that their lifestyle or their personality traits are actually contributing to these conditions and illnesses and so on. So here you are now, having learned all of these things about yourself and with your own journey. How do you help people start, really? I mean, what is the beginning of helping them heal from the same and similar conditions like you have?
Yeah. Well, first, I realized not everyone can blow up their life and move states and sell their home. And I even quit my job and healed for a year to rebalance my body. That's not the path for everyone. It's not realistic. So I ended up writing about all this. And at the end of the book, it was, well, what really healed me? Because I did so many things all at once while moving and changing, eliminating distraction. I hired a coach every week. I learned to bring in the feminine and rest and receive, things that were very foreign to a woman that was only in the hustle and masculine and force and go. I learned to face, the traumas. I learned that everything was connected, and, the sobering reality that I may have gotten myself into this point with fear-based thinking and suppressed trauma. And it was a lot of facing things, right? And understanding, like, just connecting the dots, and it was quite sobering. And so at the end of the book, I was like, what was it? I even moved to the mountains and rested surrounded by pine trees, which I think was very healing for me too. So what I'm getting at is, what I realized, it was all those things. It was all those shifts. And it doesn't necessarily mean, blowing up your life as dramatically as me. Like, you can implement these shifts within your daily life. And so I created these 12 principles from it, of like, what are the really important things to focus on, to address within your life, to see where you may need some shifts or TLC or changing, or rewiring your mindset, or slowing down, or trusting your body, because all those things I think are critical, and some of us may do some better than others. So it's really, I summarize it into these 12 shifts, or 12 principles, just to see, some people may already, one's healthy eating, but it's not just what we eat, and I would never guide anyone on what you're supposed to eat, because we're all so different. But I do have some stories about that and what I learned working with intuitives while going through this. But it's what we're thinking about while we're eating, right? Are we eating to self-soothe or self-love ourselves, or out of stress or anger, because you're sending all that into your body, right? So it's really, it's just taking a different approach to your entire life. But I want to do it in a way that realistically, like, folds it into people's daily lives, right? We have stress in our lives, we have jobs, we have, all sorts of things happening. How do we handle them? How do we learn to rebalance? So it's like addressing each part of your life. One of my principles is even like cleaning your house, or getting organized on your healing journey, maybe with systems in place, because I learned the hard way, moving, things can get really overwhelming with new doctors, and it just, so I have all these areas to really like control what we can control, rebalance what we can rebalance, learn to trust and connect with our body, etc. So it's really just like a, I hate to say holistic approach, but holistic meaning whole, right? Like, let's look at our entire body, and do we have stuck emotions or traumas that we haven't faced? And, are you connecting with nature? It's all those, it's the entire approach. So it's not really it's a framework, but within it, people can kind of take the tools that work for their own lives and to make it realistic.
One thing that I notice, from my own clients or people that I'm in conversations with, is how when people begin on this journey of healing, especially when they start moving away from the Western medicine or whatever the the doctors diagnosed and all of that or recommended, there's there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear in a healing journey. And I realized that people would say, okay, let me try, and they would really be willing to do something differently, but very quickly, the rope is very short, meaning that they will take a step forward, but they constantly check: has it helped? Is it working? Am I doing the right thing? And kind of pulling back to where they were before, and the fear and the doubt and all of that is very. It's just a very short rope length away. So how in your world, how are you helping people to really bring in that trust that this is a journey, and actually it's a journey worth taking, because this exploration is not only about healing yourself. It really is about having a kind of being reintroduced to a different life that you do in a different way to what you've done so far. But what does that look like? How
So glad you asked this, because I hadn't even addressed this. So thank you. That was one of the biggest aspects, I think, of the healing journey, because you receive this diagnosis, which just this wave of fear, right, comes over you, and every night fear, 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 fear. And fear was a big part of it for me, because I was a very fearful person. Fearful of my body, but just the way I thought. I grew up with being in survival mode, right? And scanning the horizons for danger, and just not feeling that safe as a child. And that just continued, those patterns and thoughts and mindset and limiting beliefs continued as an adult, unbeknownst to me. I didn't realize I had this undercurrent of fear. And I remember, learning to trust was a huge part. And part of it, another aha moment, a different intuitive coach, but she asked me to be in my imagination, to imagine, this great future. And I said to her, like, I can't be in imagination. Or a different intuitive asked me to place awareness into my heart. And I also said, I can't. And that's also when it started to click, like, oh, I am living in fight or flight and survival, and if you're being chased by tigers, you don't have an imagination because you're running for your life, right? And that's what was occurring in my body constantly. And you can't really manifest if you can't be in your heart, but you can't be in your heart when you're disconnected from your body. So it was all this like unraveling and learning to trust, and creating safety is a really big part of it, and part of the healing journey. They say you can't heal if you don't feel safe. So that's, my creating financial safety was a big part. Yeah, just learning. For me, it was like diving into spirituality was a big way for me to learn to trust, trusting that there's something out there that you can't see. Working with coaches that really like held my hand through that process of learning to trust. And the best story is from that, another overnight healing was I had a panic attack on a call with a boss. And I slept on it, and that's when I really said, I need to start listening to my body screaming. It was kind of that turning point of my body's not against me, my body's not defective. I think it's communicating that I need to change some stuff. And I woke up the next morning, and I had just been dabbling in oracle cards and with this new spiritual journey, and I woke up the next morning and just decided to choose one oracle card, and it said leap. Trust the universe, or the universe will catch you. Take the leap, the universe will catch you. I mean, out of all the cards, out of all the decks I could choose, and only choosing one, for it to say leap when I was contemplating what I should do with my job following that, I literally walked over to my phone with the card in my hand, called my boss, and I resigned. And I hadn't planned to resign, nothing. And the moment I resigned, this is not an exaggeration, I had been living with my arm this stuck, varying degrees. But I was at, the grand finale of the inflammation in my body. It was at its peak. And when I resigned, my arm was moving again, and it's never been stuck since. So I do think that, again, choosing me, your elbow is about, I think, fighting change sort of thing. And I think there was misalignment eventually with the job I was in, and, my body was guiding the way. So that was a really big lesson in trust, and, taking that leap and trusting that you'll get caught, with the fall. I'm now writing about financial healing. I'm finishing another book, and I'm in a big financial trust right now, and I'm seeing the similarities of healing physically and healing financially with, really addressing these limiting beliefs and learning to trust when you may not see the results, just like healing, but you have to believe internally you're making progress. Just like financially, you may not see it today in your bank account, but continuing to trust every single day that you're going to be supported, and think positively rather than worst case scenario. I mean, the fact that I saw it happen, the change with my body, I'm believing it all actually too. And it's, to answer your question too, it's such a better way to live, to think positively and trusting, and that this is all happening for my greatest good. And here I am able to help other people now because I went through these things, and here I'm able to live a happier existence because I faced it. And I think it's way more fun to live with trust that it will all work out, and that the universe will support you, and you're on your right path than the fearful one. In fact, my favorite book is called The Surrender Experiment. And it's all about how the universe, he just continued to trust when things were presented in front of him, even though he didn't really understand it. And the universe delivered even better than he could have if he got in the way. So trust is a huge part of healing, I think. I absolutely agree. And sorry for the long-winded answer, but it's a really cool story, I think. So, yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, and it is interesting for me. I always in my walk, and when I talk about alignment, I help people see how when they get back into alignment, all of these conditions really fall by the wayside because the message has been received and maybe actions were taken, but also that you now teaching yourself to kind of thrive forward with this new understanding of where things were out of alignment before. And I guess that people we all have a journey, whichever journey it is, right? We all on a journey, and we can never know, I guess, what is really the point where we say, right, now I'm going to start trusting, or putting my faith in something different to what I have. But I imagine that people that come to you are already in that place where they're willing to give things a go, because maybe they've seen that whatever they were doing before wasn't working as well as they wanted, or maybe they just got that inspiration that, if I always say that, right? If even one person was able to do it, there's a lot of chances that anyone can do it. Just let's be more open-minded about it all. So let's talk a little bit more about the 12. What do you call them? Not pillars.
Principles, yeah,
Yeah,
framework.
yeah, yeah. Let's talk a little bit about these 12 principles.
Oh, sure. So they kind of go in order, because my view and what I've learned is ultimately it's a path of kind of, going back to your authentic self. And I think our true authentic selves are, authenticity, they say, is one of the highest vibrations. And a lot of this is about releasing these old patterns and habits and thought processes that are kind of dense and heavy, and keeping us magnetizing these, unpleasant circumstances maybe, and changing our mindset, and, to live. I see it as returning back to like who we truly are. And that, so it's kind of guiding people back to self-love. And, nature to me is a huge part of it, or our most natural state. And again, take that what you will and what resonates best for the individual. But remembering we are part of nature too, right? Like we have these cycles. We need sunlight and water and air, just like a plant. And if you talk to a plant bad, the plant gets sick. If you talk to us bad, it's also happening. We're made of over 70% water, and there's a lot of studies with words and thoughts on what happens to water. So my 12 principles, it's kind of like a journey towards that, right? Step by step. So connecting with your body, learning to slow down, that may also help understand where you feel the pain, what that might mean. Do you have something stuck, like emotions stuck in your body? And learning to bring in kind of the feminine and the masculine too. Then I call it healthy food and water, but like I said, it's not just what we eat. And I learned to move towards kind of whole foods, but it's our emotions while we're eating them, right? You're sending that water into your body. There's a reason why people maybe bless their food or whatever. So I'm really learning to like slow down when I eat, because I used to just eat really fast. And so I was sending all that like rage or emotions into my stomach and wreaking havoc. So not just what we eat, but how we eat. And I say clean your house because that's my third one. To have a clean environment, I think like helps alleviate a cluttered mind, right? But also, are there products in your home that may not be healthy for you too? It's like really time to address all that, address the cluttered corners. Is the energetic flow well? Are there things that could be, do you have like a candle that maybe could be replaced with a cleaner option of a candle? So it's, it's our addressing your environment. Words and thoughts, just how we talked about the claiming ownership and, talking about your healing rather than owning this diagnosis as, part of your persona. So how important our words and thoughts are with our healing. I have one that's getting organized, which I alluded to, from, creating systems just while you're feeling good. It's not to plan for a worst case scenario, but, in my journey, I didn't know it would take 10 years. I didn't know I'd have a move in the middle of it. And there was many appointments and stress that could have been avoided, or x-rays that were duplicated, because things were, you have notes over here and recipes over here. And so like getting the systems and organization in place, I just think will help like reduce that stress too. These are basically things I learned hard way all along the way, so people don't have to go through what I. Keeping pathways clear and moving, so movement, addressing just the flow within our body. Do you need lymph work or sauna, or how do you get your systems? We want them to flow smoothly in your body. We don't want blockages, right? So, is it yoga? What is it that you could do? When I couldn't move my knees well, I would still try to do arm exercises. Like, what can you do right now? One of my favorites is healthy morning and evening routines. So I try to add in, healthy moments throughout the day. We can't all just like take hours to meditate or whatever, but could you do a few things at once? Like in your morning time, I always, with my first sip of coffee, I go outside in the morning sun, in nature. I try to ground barefoot, listen to the birds, which signal safety into our body. So can you kind of compile a few things either in your morning or evening? In evening, is it journaling, meditating, sauna? You don't have to do both, but could you do one or the other sometime in the day? Find 10 minutes to rebalance. When we talked about, so we're kind of building up, choosing yourself and taking courageous steps. We talked about that's a big principle of mine. The heavier one is building safety, trust, and letting go. So that's like addressing the emotional components in your body, releasing maybe the emotions that aren't serving you, and creating safety and trust in your life. And again, I break it down into, ideas, because it's not one size fits all. One I hadn't mentioned yet but I think you alluded to, is finding purpose. So I found that incredibly important for me, to understand my purpose and take steps towards it. I think that was part of the misalignment, is I had a higher calling to help people with this. It was in me. It's in me to write these books. And I think, that's part of jumping out of bed every day, is like, oh, I get to go do this today. I get to be on this podcast. So I find that really healing. And then, the last two are those two we're moving towards, which is self-love and filling your cup, and then the elements of nature. So it's just like, it's this whole, just reviewing your life and what changes can you implement in ideally all these areas, or maybe it's just a few you need to focus on. So that's the framework.
I think it's what you're describing is really something that anyone would benefit quite a lot from following
Anyway,
the 12 steps or 12 principles, because it really is about simplifying and letting go and noticing where things are not flowing, basically, and identifying where the resistance is. And I love that you're making the connection that actually when you follow these steps, healing comes as well, because healing is very much, it's influenced by so many different things. And if you are in resistance, if you are in stuck, if you are in fear, then you won't be able to release it. And when you find these steps to actually really practice a very different kind of life, then things happen that you don't even realize how helpful they are, and how every aspect of life will look very different when you start being more mindful of this.
And even just everything we're consuming, right? Like I've learned, think of like social media. I've learned, like my friends will say, did you see this? No, because I tailor what I receive. And, I don't listen. I was like into punk rock and stuff, which I still like that. But at home, it's healing sounds. It's like really healthy, calming music, which in my old chaotic mind wasn't for me, because I used to find peace and calm boring, because I was, in overdrive, my nervous system and everything. But now that's what I gravitate towards, right? So it's like, it's looking at like what is it we're consuming with all of our senses every day, all around us, and how is that impacting us. I go to bed listening to healing music every night. My dog's probably the most healed dog there is, with crystals and all the things I do constantly. He drinks, clean water just like me too. So yeah, it absolutely is a lifestyle, but it's not that you have to shift everything. It's just like slowly folding these things in to like create healthier habits too.
I think that's really, it's part of it, because when we're talking about people saying, okay, I'm going to start shifting towards, something else, there's always this kind of it's either or. So I either do this or I do that. But the steps that you are describing, or the principles, they are very, you don't have to, right? You can just add them to your life, in a sense that the shift and the changes that you are making can be very gentle and very small. And so if you have, like I said before, the rope of the little, whatever you're willing to give up or to change, you don't have to make very big decisions. You can say, I continue doing whatever I was doing, but okay, let me try and do some grounding whenever I can, or just pay attention to some things in really, where is my stress coming from? Because I think we are so good at not recognizing where stress is coming from, and we a lot of the time not even recognizing that we are stressed. So it's really, it feels very much about this kind of gradual embracing of new ideas, rather than, okay, let me now, from now on, this is how it must be, right? We don't even want to bring rigidness and then rigid, whatever the word is, strictness and all of that. We want to bring flow. We want to bring softness into our lives.
Totally, that's key. And made me also think about just loving yourself is such a big, I used to consider self-love as selfish. And it's like, it's so critical, to love all parts of your body. They're like, or like even my knee, I just call it a communicative knee. And I know what thoughts I'm thinking when the knee is like, hello. And I send more love to that knee, right? Just like things I used to not love about my body is what I'm realizing I need to send you more love. Or the things, like, I'm open about this, like body hair, peach fuzz. I used to hate it, but I realized was part of my sensitivity. These are all little receptors, and so now I like love that, right? So it's like, there's such great reasons for all this, and who we are and our bodies, and the path of loving it is just such a more pleasant way than disliking a part of your body, right? So I just try to send the parts that maybe they need more love. I mean, I truly like talk to my cells or talk to my body. I do. There is something to that for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, like you say, right? Your body is communicating with you, so why wouldn't you communicate with your body?
Yeah, exactly.
It's definitely a two-way conversation. But I think it is really interesting, especially like we're talking about, yes, rheumatoid arthritis and other autoimmune conditions. People starting on this journey, there is a lot of fear, there are a lot of preconceived notion of what the journey is going to be like and what is right and what is wrong. You mentioned gut and food and nutrition and stuff, and it is really interesting, because for a very long time, I don't know how it is now, doctors would say, oh, what you eat doesn't have any impact on how you feel, right? They didn't make the connection. But when we went into holistic healing and all of that, the gut is the most important thing. And there are people who say that most or any condition start in the gut or end with the gut, or whatever it is. But here we are in saying, actually, the gut is a journey in its own, but we want to talk about the emotions and the fears and the stresses, and really how we show up in our lives. And And I think when you say self-love, for example, this is something for me that is very front of mind, because I notice with my own clients again that a lot of the time people they would say things like, I don't know what that means. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to achieve it. Like self love, but also self care or deservingness, or all of these different things that I think you and I, we are more heart based, and people that are more mind based, they find these things really challenging, and they have no concept of what that is, how to lean into that, and how to bring the changes. So I think it's really important that you're talking about it, and like you say, you give examples and maybe smaller steps on how to bring that into your reality.
I was that person, I didn't have self-love. I didn't have self-worth even. I didn't realize it until I sat with all this and learned it. I couldn't be in my heart. I couldn't slow down. And one of the ways that I had to was working with a naturopath. The two most alarming test results for me was, he was like, forget everything else, and he did everything. Your stress levels were literally off the charts. They were like, whew. And my testosterone was at 0. And I didn't even know at the time women had testosterone. Like, I don't know, but we do. And so I realized the connection. I had an intuitive massage all around the same time. And the right side of your body, which was the side that was primarily inflamed, represents the masculine, which is the go and the do and the force, which turns out I lived my whole life there. And to have no testosterone and my stress off the charts showed I'm seeing it from both a intuitive perspective and a test results naturopathic perspective, that I hustled and forced and didn't rebalance, replenish my way. I was past fumes, right? I was just I don't even know how I was still going. So because he said to me, I don't even know if you can get back. Like, you're so far gone.
That's a
And
statement and a half.
what's that?
That's a statement and a half.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was trying to be really honest, but I wasn't eating meat at the time, so I was like, let me try some really big shifts, and I decided to start to bring in the feminine of, like, it was so foreign, receiving, allowing, trusting, flowing. I had to like force it at first, because I was like, what is this trust and allow and flow like? And I I tried steak for the first time in 20 years, but the feminine, it came up when my lease was up, and I was thinking, where am I going to go? What am I going to do? What's next? And I said, okay, this is what I'm going to try. Trust and allow and flow and ease and surrender.
Let's start with the really big things.
Let's see this in action. Let me try it. And with a really big, yeah, where am I moving? And I called a friend and said, hey, is your house in Lake Tahoe available to rent? And it was. And I was like, that's really easy. And that is flowing, and that's trusting. And I've always wanted to live in Tahoe. So it was like a good lesson in that, right? Like, oh, it can be really easy. I don't have to go out and stress and freak out and grind. And like, look how that just like, when I just was like, I'm ready to receive, it's going to be easy. And it was. So little moments like that, just reassuring and learning to replenish and rebalance, like just little things will keep adding up, and you'll see like, oh, there really is something to that. And yeah, just more of that then continues too. But you can do small things, maybe it's just one thing a day for yourself, but how do you just like learn to even like, I had to practice being present in my heart. It's just like going to the gym, but for something different, right? You have to just, I had a coach say, okay, Christy, 10 times a day, try to be in your heart. So I'd be walking around like, be in my heart, And then soon it gets easier, but it's so hard at first to, just like meditating. If you're used to the grind and rush, I thought meditating was a waste of time. And, but it's all good for you because you're kind of rebalancing back to that um, balanced state.
I mean, it's really about exploring all of these things, right? And figuring out, you know, where do I start? What feels right? What is calling me? I mean, it depends, of course, in what way you are starting, but all of these things will be very beneficial. Really, like we said, whoever you are, whatever it is that you're going through, there's definitely room for more of that kind of stuff.
And what you just said is learning to trust your knowing. Like if I like what is the little what are you hearing? What are you feeling? Where are you being pulled towards? Like I'll have friends reach out and they'll start to say something. I was like, trust that. What you just said, that's what you need to follow, No one wanted me to sell my house, but I was like, no, this is my journey. I know I'm supposed to now. And you just like learning to trust that, then I think you might get more of those hits or connection or, we all have that kind of inner guidance. So learning to follow that and listen and
We do,
that's
we
what's
do,
guiding you.
we absolutely do. But the problem really is that we have the other side, the fears that are so loud and so overwhelmingly present that it's really challenging for people to hear this guidance and intuition. So it just, I mean, we're of course saying exactly the same thing, but it just, I guess, for people who are listening or watching and thinking, yes, but how do I do this? And because people, especially when they're already starting, they already face some of these challenges themselves, thinking, yes, but I don't know what that looks like, or I don't know what it look or feels like you said about the imagination and all of that. It really is foreign. They really don't know what it's all about. So what we are basically saying is that it's really the decision to have a go. And the Surrender Experience, fantastic book. You should definitely go and read it, because it's exactly that. It really is saying, I have no idea, but my natural instinct is going to say no. I'm going to say yes because it's here on my path. So how come? What is going on?
And it's all, I know it sounds cliche, but it's all happening for us, not to us, right? Like, and maybe, I believe wholeheartedly, like, if anyone's resonating with anything that I've been through, it's an incredibly brave path. And I think you're here to learn major lessons and have major growth. And either you choose to step into that or not, that's your choice. But I just like think some people are here on a really brave path and here to heal a lot of stuff, or as they say, like the cycle breakers or the pattern breakers, right? Like it's a real thing, and it's not an overnight healing. I hate to say it, and it's painful too because what they call shadow work is like finally, like I had to finally accept, like, oh, my childhood wasn't great, and let me face this, and let me, instead of like shoving it down and trying to be like other people, I had to like sit with it, and it's, a lot of tears were shed. So it's a really brave path, and it's just kind of like step by step, if you're willing to walk it, to really just let it go and truly heal. It's a path, it's a journey, but the other side is incredible. It's not perfect, but it's way better.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and I think it's really is about being curious and kind of, you know, really showing up with curiosity and what could that be like if I tried something different, or if I allowed for something to happen, or if I let go of something. So there's constant conversations that are happening within us when we're going on all of these different journeys. And the fun thing is that
It's,
it's never
to me,
ending.
it's still a daily thing. It's still a daily reassurance. Like I said, not only did this physical healing, but I'm in this financial one too, realizing similarities and kind of the remaining limiting beliefs to heal. But it's a daily thing, you're reprogramming a deep mindset. And, this is like, I am enough, right? Like it's a journey, and it's a reprogramming. And, I go to bed listening to, like I said, manifestation or mantras, or, I'm still rewiring. So, but it's worth it, truly.
So you have already gone or done a lot of your journey to be able to look back and see everything that you already shared or moved past or changed, really how your transformation journey has been going on. And I think it's wonderful, and it's a wonderful inspiration for anyone going through any sorts of healing, to know that yes, it can be challenging, but it also is very rewarding. So stay with
Yeah.
it.
My heart goes out to everyone feeling, in it, that if I can get from, I like to say, I lived as small as possible, scared, survival, sick. If I can get to that, to be, talking to you now about it with self-worth again and self-love, and, out of balancing the hustle with, feminine too, and receiving and allowing. Um, if I can do it, I have a lot of faith that others can do it too. I do think I've kind of swung the pendulum from one side to the other. So yeah, I hope to bring inspiration to other people with my journey.
Absolutely. I mean, not many people can say I've healed, or whatever was going on is no longer in my path, and that is highly inspiring. And so on this kind of note, we're getting to the end of our conversation today. But Kristen, what are kind of you know one thing that you think people should walk away from this conversation today?
Mm. Trust that your body is always working for you and communicating, not against you. I think that's like, we see cuts on our arm heal. Trust that our body is an incredible self-healing mechanism, and we can help those processes.
Yes, amen to that.
That was a journey for me to believe that too. So,
Well, it's in a nutshell. That's exactly what it is. So very well summarized. Kristen, thank you so much for being here with us today. It was lovely chatting with you, and lovely to hear about your journey of transformation. Very inspiring and eye-opening. And of course, all of your information is going to be in the show notes, where people are going to watch or listen to the conversation, so they can get in touch and ask questions and find a little bit more about the 12 steps. And of course, you have your book. Do you have a copy you can show us?
I have it right here. So this is the elements of healing. It's really to, you could read it weekly to fold these principles in however it resonates. Yeah, because I have coaching in a course too, but I really want this to be affordable and accessible. And so it's really the how about it. Yeah. Thank you.
So again, the link to the book will also be in the show notes. Kristen, thank you so much for being here with us today, and
Thank you. It was so lovely to chat with you.
thank you. And for anyone watching, please do share, like, and comment, because these conversations is what keeps us going. And of course, natural healing is the most important message that the world is needing these days. So share it on.
Yes.
Thank you.